Okay, here we are. Now we're getting into it. I just want to say it's gonna get deep, it's gonna get thick, it's gonna get crazy. The Hays Code was written in 1930 by a Catholic layman and a Catholic priest. That priest was a Jesuit. We talked about Jesuits in our last episode. That priest's name was Father Daniel Lord. And he wrote other little things.
Oh, adorable.
Just so adorable, little cute things. Wrote little poems about
Valentine's.
little bunnies. He just wrote little bunny poems. No, I have no idea about that. So we're talking about the Hays Code. It completely changed Hollywood. Not overnight, because it took some time for it to take effect. So we want to talk about what happened to it. Why isn't it still in effect? So Timothy Flanders, we've tasked you with this topic ahead of time because this is a deep topic. I think and the whole reason why we wanted to have you talk about this is because you have a life of multiple roles. You do a lot of things when it comes to Catholicism. You aren't just doing this one thing. You've done a lot of things. You've been on Mass of the Ages episodes, and you're now endeavoring into something called Pelican Plus. So I really would like to know, what is it? How do I'm 50, so it takes me a while to get with it, but I want to get me with it. What is Pelican Plus and why should Catholics care about this?
Sure. I mean, well, y'all are doing this movie crusade because there's a antichrist technocracy out there, which is doing all sorts of algorithms. We don't even know, God knows what is going on. And it's all in order to worship the idols of yourself and your own satisfaction, your own desires. And it's incentivizing that and worshiping the dollar. But we still use YouTube. We still use Netflix. We still use all these different things. But the Catholic Church needs to build an institution against the Antichrist technocracy. And this is our institution, Pelican Plus. It is a Catholic digital institution which provides a alternative to Netflix, an alternative to Substack, an alternative to YouTube, an alternative to Audible. We're also talking about building a Catholic version of Etsy. And so something that is made by Catholics for Catholics according to Catholic social teaching, not according to the algorithm beast or whatever is
It's a good way to put it, algorithm beast.
So that's what we need, which would allow Catholics to have a connection with Catholics across the world and to share things and to support one another. So that's what Pelican Plus is, pelicanplus.com. And that's what we're building. So we're really hoping that it can be something that benefits all Catholics.
Sure.
The potential for it is huge. And so that's what Pelican Plus is. It's building all of that content with an integrated Catholic platform.
And is this an app?
It's an app. It's a website.
Okay.
We're trying to build on a Roku platform as well for TVs.
Okay.
So that's what it is.
Oh, that's cool. Getting on TV would be sweet. Yeah, that's smart TV.
Okay. And this is new. This hasn't been going on long.
Yeah, we just launched. Time of this recording, it's been
It's years.
month and a half.
I told you, 2027. This is when this is coming out. No, that's good.
So the idea is that this is a critical part of the Gabriel Code idea, is that we need to create a Catholic institution, digitally speaking, where we have this sort of thing where we're creating the true, the good, and the beautiful.
Right.
Because all of the systems we're using out there are anti-Catholic technocracy. And so we need to be mindful of the way that these systems were designed. Like Facebook was designed to exploit human psychology. They said that explicitly. This is, people understand the serotonin, dopamine boosts of all this different stuff. And Catholics are just getting sucked into this.
That is true.
Thinking about it. So that's why we created Pelican Plus.
Okay.
And it's part of that whole crusade.
That's great. And you're right. We're Cameron, you and I are in the middle of writing the Gabriel Code. It's not finished yet, but there are principles that we've obviously talked about as we're rating a film.
And we're getting the help of some moral theologians.
We are getting the help of Catholic moral theologians.
Where do you draw the line with some of these things? You know, that's an important question. With some of these principles, like, okay, here's an evil scene. What is this enough of an evil consequence? Here's an evil scene. Here's what's shown, you know? Yeah. And so Catholic moral theologians will help us. We've talking to some, and they're saying no one's doing this. No. Like, this is a frontier where we need the best minds in the Catholic Church to help us.
We do. And given some of your responses, might have to like tap into your brain, get your help on this, or the help of Pelican Plus is not just you. You've got a whole team of Pelican.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder. Dan Seveny is the CEO. Peter Kwasniewski, Kennedy Hall are involved. Ed Schaefer, Nicholas Cavazos. So, and we've got other contributors that we're bringing on. But I love what y'all are doing with the Gabriel Code, because that's really a philosophical framework for us at Pelican Plus to bring on high quality art. In high quality film art in this Catholic.
And no, that's great. And we started the Gabriel Code because in 1930 something was written called the Hays Code, named after Will Hays. He wasn't the author, but it was named after him because he was the head of the Motion Picture Distribution Association. Let's take a look at that. Bringing back family movie night, because Back to the Future is amazing. I don't remember the nudity, but you want to take it out, and you want to go to vidangel.com.
I think sex and nudity is just like a combined
it's a clump thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a mild, passionate kissing stuff.
Okay, I see. That makes
talk of groping. I remember.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Take it out.
Go to vidangel.com, and you're going to use promo code Crusade. Back to the Future is classic, and it's what made DeLoreans. I think without Back to the Future, nobody knows about DeLoreans.
No, or flux capacitors.
That's the truth. But when you grew up in the 80s, like I did.
1.21 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts! A bolt of lightning! A bolt of lightning! That's vidangel.com. Promo code Crusade.
Like, okay.
Okay, we'll just go back to it, Tony. You're just going to keep talking about it. Marty, where are we going to get that kind of power?
I think Tony needs to come back to the future.
So you've been tasked with this. We talked about this, like, hey, Timothy, we're going to talk about this. Hays Code was written in 1930. In 34, the Catholic Legion of Decency started because of Archbishop McNicholas from Cincinnati, right? And then that led to what was the next thing that happened is then in 1936, Vigilante Cura was written. So the Hays Code was kind of this primer. It just set the stage, but it failed. It's not, like, there's a lot of people have heard of the Hays Code, but it's more of a like, yeah, it was this thing.
Yeah, at first it was ignored, and then the church stepped in and it was followed seriously, and then something happened and it fell apart.
Yeah, so talk to us about that. How did the wheels fall off the bus?
Well, first of all, I'm not an expert on this history, but this is something that also took place in Germany at the same time. The Germans had, in the 1920s, there was a similar Legion of Decency confraternity as well. But the problem was that, so this is the period of what I call in my book, City of God versus City of Man, the first sexual revolution in the 1920s. And so there was a sexual revolution going on. This is like the Roaring 20s period.
That's right.
There was a strong feminism. There's sexual revolution. There's all sorts of racial stuff that we'll get into too. And then there's Jewish elements too. That's the really difficult wrinkle in the story. But basically, when Hollywood in Germany and the Hollywood version of Germany version of Hollywood rather, and Hollywood in America, they started creating pornography in films. It shocked the consciences of all the good Christians in America and Germany. And so Protestants first, they tried to address it and they tried to fight against it, but they were so divided they couldn't do anything about it. And then the Catholics eventually took the lead and they were able to create a confraternity where all the Catholics would take a vow during the octave of the Immaculate Conception.
Right.
On the Sunday within the octave of the Immaculate Conception, they would take a vow where they would condemn bad movies and not go to these movies. And so it was
a pledge. They took the pledge.
It was a pledge,
right?
And it was a boycott of Hollywood. And so Hollywood was like, wow, Hollywood just realized, just from a business standpoint, that they could not make these movies. So they were able to force them to their knees. And then the good Protestants sort of jumped on board with that. There were also Orthodox Jews who could have been a part of this as well, because we have the Jewish civil war going on as a part of this whole narrative. So basically the Catholic Church, in a similar way to the modern pro-life movement, is very Catholic led, but the Catholics welcome everybody of goodwill who's willing to jump on that same bandwagon. So this was a very strong grassroots movement, but it was destroyed in the 1960s in particular for various causes that we'll attempt to diagnose.
Okay, so you're right, Cameron. It started, nobody paid attention to it. Bishops got involved. And then from my research, Tim, around the early 40s, approximately 7 million Catholics had taken the pledge at that point. So then we've got Hollywood is already paying attention. Vigilante Cura comes out in 36. And then The Ideal Film is written in 1955, which is completely groundbreaking. And the fact that it's not talked about more blows me away. But going back to the code, it did its thing for quite a while, though. It did what it was supposed to do. But let's keep talking about why the wheels fell off the bus. There's probably some controversy to this, but we just need to get into it and talk about it, because the reality is the church took their foot off the gas and Hollywood is pushing the boundaries. Mm-hmm. They're pushing the boundaries with The Pawnbroker, which was 1964, and then Blow Up, which was 1966. And now, you and I haven't talked about this yet. We haven't done the same research. I'm just telling you, I've been doing my research and trying to figure it out, because we're writing the Gabriel Code, and I want to know, okay, if we're writing the Gabriel Code, why did the Hays Code fail? So that we can not have the same problem. So keep going. Talk to us about why the wheels fell off the bus.
I tried to identify, I think there's at least 6 reasons why it failed. Number 1 is clericalism. Lay people thought at the time that if the bishops, this is all about the bishops and the clerics who need to call all the shots. And so in the 1960s, when it seemed like the bishops and clerics were changing their minds because of the spirit of Vatican II was kind of creating the situation, it seemed like, well, we should just change and go along with whatever the bishops. But if the lay people had a strong sense of their lay apostolate, in America, there was no lay noblemen, lay nobility, lay kings. There's no kings, obviously. John F. Kennedy was elected in 1960, and he said, there is an absolute separation of church and state. I will not let my Catholic faith affect my presidency. And so
that was such a sign of the times too.
Yeah. So when the lay people don't understand, even though Vatican II itself, according to the letter of the document, actually reaffirmed the lay people's job to govern the temporal order and Christianize it. And they said that ominous doctrine, they called the separation of church and state, Limit Gentium, that ominous doctrine should be condemned. And that's what the Vatican II actually said. But because of the clerical mindset where they just thought, well, we just pray, pay, and obey, even in this sphere, the sphere of film is the temporal society. This is the lay people's job to govern this.
Right.
They don't need permission from a cleric to deal with this. So that's number 1. Number 2 is race mixing. The problem was that the abolitionist movement, which was to free the slaves from the wicked, unjust slavery that they had suffered for years, was intimately tied with sexual revolution since at least 1848, because the Seneca Falls Convention, which was the proto-feminist convention, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Frederick Douglass was there, and the blacks saw the liberation, the feminism, as also part and parcel with the liberation of blacks.
Right.
So we have a positive social movement, which is liberating blacks, but then we have this sexual revolution. And in the 1920s, there was had always been this thing called the shadow family, which is where Thomas Jefferson's wife, he inherited Thomas Jefferson's wife's half sister because it was the shadow. The shadow family is when the slaveholder commits adultery with a slave woman and has a bunch of children. And then because of the slave system in America, which was totally different than the New Orleans slaves because they were freed. They had to be basically, if a Catholic slaveholder committed adultery, he was shamed and he had to free those children that he fathered. And that's what created a whole system of free people of blacks in New Orleans. But in the heretical slave trade, not that that's the first one was good at all, but right. But they were actually incentivized. They were incentivized to commit adultery and create this whole shadow family, and that was the whole. So Malcolm X's biography talks about how there's this whole sexual immorality of race mixing that nobody wants to talk about, but it's very, very deep and powerful. And they're like, he talks about like white women sneaking off and seeking out these fornications with blacks and stuff. So we have this whole sexual immorality and sexual revolution, which is intimately tied with the abolitionist movement. And so then you have the Hays Code comes along and says no interracial marriage. And this was illegal in 30 states or so. So
the Hays Code had that because it's illegal. Right? Because the Hays Code is all about don't make crime sympathetic. Is that the reason that it was in the Hays Code, or
these are all different historical factors. But I mean, you have Jim Crow happening, and because of the heretical nature of this slavery, whereas the Catholic popes condemned slavery, but all the good Catholics just couldn't stop it. They were disobedient Catholics. They were not good. They slaved anyways, but they all catechized and baptized these slaves. And they intermarried with each other, and they created, the mestiza race, the mulatto race, these different races that were all mixed, because that's the only way to deal with race in the Americas is to actually make everybody Catholic, and they all go to the same church, and then eventually many of them get married to each other, and that's just how this all works out. Whereas the Anglican heretical dealt with race is this intense this sexual passion. And all of this heretical nonsense that's trying we have to keep these races separate because of all these things. So because that was embedded in the Hays Code, that the Catholics tolerated that, because we need to emphasize too that the popes were condemning slavery more and more and more in the 19th century, but the Catholic bishops were a little embarrassed about that in America. Catholic bishops in America, they were like, well, the popes, because they're like struggling to survive. All these Anglican WASP, they're like, these Catholics are terrible. So the fact that they allowed that in the Hays Code was like a Trojan horse, because it's completely wrong. It's sinful to say that you can't marry a different race. That's because this is, it's ultimately an offense against Our Lady of Guadalupe, who's a mestiza. But
I gotta admit, I did not find that in the Hays Code when I read it. I probably overlooked it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of thinking it's a sign of the times. And I just went on from there. So,
but it's important to note that it's not just because they're racist. They are racist. That is a factor. But there's also this sexual revolution going. So we actually have white liberals who are paying Langston Hughes in Harlem to do sexual stuff because they wanted, the whites had this false idea that blacks are more sexual. This was a common.
Yes.
They wanted to use and abuse black culture to promote sexual revolution. And this is critical to understand, because then you have Dr. Martin Luther King, who is a notorious adulterer. He's awful. Martin Luther King is a sexual revolutionary. And this is why we have all these problems, is that, Malcolm X was faithful to his wife, although he was Muslim. But we have this mixture of this sexual revolution with the civil rights movement. So this poisonous mixture of a good social good to liberate blacks from this wicked oppression of slavery and everything. But then we have it mixed up with all this sexual. So this is the
So why would that lead the Hays Code to fail, to say there can be no interracial marriages?
Because if we're trying to liberate blacks from unjust oppression, the Hays Code is looked upon as racist.
Yeah.
Because it is in that sense.
Right.
It's not dealing with the race question properly in a Catholic way.
Yeah.
So essentially the Hays Code is enshrining a heretical view of race.
Right. Okay.
Is the essence of what I'm saying.
Makes sense.
Good. Makes sense. Keep going. This is good.
Another reason is liberalism itself. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, people were making arguments that art is free speech. Like you can't restrict this art because this is free speech.
Right.
But that's heretical liberalism. The popes have condemned liberalism. Right. You can't just say free speech forever. Like, we have these problems today. People are talking about hate
free
speech
without limits. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were able to make these same arguments and justify using the U.S. Constitution. And because Catholics had adopted liberalism as their concepts, they had no way to get back on that. So
it kind of that symptom seems to have been a more gradual falling off then. As a liberal sentiment grows, they feel less inclined to enforce the Hays Code against free speech.
I think that if the Catholics adopt, we have John Courtney Murray, Dignitatis Humanae. He's trying to make Vatican II as a way to justify the U.S. Constitution as the ideal Catholic thing, and this is the way that they argued. They argued their way into this free speech, into promoting this degeneracy, this pornography as free speech. So that's number three. And another thing I want to mention is the way that the race question becomes a Jewish thing too, because then there's this aspect of a Jewish element where there are Orthodox Jews who would be our allies because they believe in God and they believe in some basic morality.
Right.
But then there's these other Jews who want to promote various things and they want to promote anti-Christian ideas. And this has been a Jewish civil war between Jews since before Christ.
Right.
There's always been these sects of Jews who are fighting each other.
Right.
So it's not true to say like all the Jews have the same opinion, but there are all these different factors where after World War II, they had there was a lie told by certain Jews where whole of Hitler's ideas were basically a result of Catholic anti-Semitism. And if you promote the Catholic faith, you're an anti-Semite and all this sort of thing. And there was lies against Pius XII that were, blaming everything on Pius XII. And so it was a situation where the Catholic Church was struggling to justify itself. And when The Pawnbroker comes out, it's a movie about the Holocaust.
That's right.
And so it's not something that the Catholic Church many Catholics felt strong to really defend.
Oh, it's something that should have been condemned by the Hays Code, but wasn't because it was about the Holocaust?
Not because it was about the Holocaust, but because of the nudity.
Yeah. No, I'm saying they wouldn't condemn it because of the Holocaust.
Right.
Yes.
Material.
That's right.
So that's why that's at least one reasonable
That's a Trojan horse right there.
Right.
So it's a difficult situation because we're dealing with these atrocities and these injustices against Jews that Catholics fought against, like St. Maximilian Kolbe and various, Pius XII, the chief rabbi of Rome, converted to Catholicism because Pius XII saved so many Jews and really, helped the Jews and stuff. But there are these lies against the Catholic Church after World War II. Right. And Catholics are feeling like maybe we are responsible for all these atrocities.
There's that guilt. The guilt.
So it's a really difficult moral situation in the post-war trauma where there's, and then there's also the entire American psychological warfare is being put to the use of promoting the post-war narrative, which is basically like the Axis were pure evil, the Allies were all good, even Stalin, not so bad. He was a good guy during World War II. He was on our side. And so this is a very difficult situation. And this is why one reason perhaps why we lost our nerves there. I said Spirit of Vatican II, I kind of already mentioned that one. And another reason I thought maybe there's restrictions on good literature. Somebody mentioned this to me, and I wasn't able to research it, but Brideshead Revisited is a masterpiece of literature, Evelyn Waugh, and they tried to make this, apparently, I was told by one amateur historian, but they didn't like it because it was too morally ambiguous, even though it's the whole story is excellent. But so perhaps in that time there was an intense, during the anti-modernist crusade, there was an intensity and an excessive strictness to not allow more good things that were more gray. So anyways, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you went deeper into some things that I really didn't know about, and I appreciate that. The research that I gathered was really relatively superficial, but yet still kind of made sense, where it was a lot of time had passed. The church's stance weakened. I really like what you mean, or what you were talking about as it pertains to even the laity was just like, well, we don't need to take this pledge anymore because we feel like we might be infringing on the rights of these people who want to have this free speech. And then you get something like The Pawnbroker, which was put out in '64, which ironically was the same director as 12 Angry Men.
Really?
Yeah, same director. But
wow.
The Jews behind that movie, and I'm not trying to be rude, it's the fact this was a story about the Holocaust. They pushed the envelope. There was no need. You basically have this man. He was a broken man from the Holocaust. He comes over to the U.S. and you see this, like, he's just basically, a man in a shell. He's just completely lifeless. And you're looking at life through the lens, the movie is like through the lens of his eyes. But there were things in that movie that were absolutely absurd. You have two different women in complete full frontal nudity, and the director, the writers, they are basically like, well, this movie's about the Holocaust. This is how we're telling the story. I'm sorry, but those breasts have nothing to do with the Holocaust.
Right.
Period. Because again, and I haven't. I want to watch it through vidangel.com, promo code Crusade, and I have not yet watched the entire movie. I've watched a lot of clips and I've read a lot about it.
Well, it reminds me of the fact that Jewish not theology, but morality is different from Catholic morality, evidenced by Dennis Prager on Matt Fradd's show talking about pornography is just whatever, dude. Like, whatever. Like, why is it so bad, And that was a shocking moment for a lot of people, but a Jewish way to make a film is different from a Catholic way of making
100%. Yeah, 100%. So we got to dig deeper. Like you can go, and I think that we even, Cameron, you and I need to be writing about this. So we need to keep writing the Gabriel Code, which we're doing with the help of Catholic moral theologians. But we also need to do our research on the why. Why did the Hays Code fail, and what are the pitfalls that we're going to run into? So, Tim, great job. Thank you for doing all that research and laying it out there. Any final thoughts on that, Cameron?
Yeah, the way I understand it in just a much simpler way is that you have a new generation, after 1930. The church moved into dialogue instead of taking a pledge and taking a stance.
Yeah.
They stopped asking for Catholics to rise up and do this. And as the church got soft, like Hollywood got more aggressive, but I didn't even piece together that's just one reason, but you gave, 4 more reasons. So that's surprising. Yeah.
If you liked that clip, which I'm sure you did, then check out our other clips, and don't forget to go into the comments section and hype this bad boy. Don't make me get fat cardinal. Hype it now.